countries with grievances against the United States. The United States has a long history of rubbing other countries the wrong way. Of course, this isn't unique to the US. Every nation has its fair share of political friction, except maybe Switzerland. However, in recent years, even some of America's closest allies have started expressing their frustration. Today, we'll explore the countries that have grievances with the US. And those grievances are only growing. Let's dive in. Germany. Germany and the US share a complicated friendship. Cordial on the surface, but filled with underlying tensions. Key issues include the NSA spying scandal, trade disputes, and ongoing US pressure on Europe to increase defense spending. One major point of contention was the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline to Russia. The US opposed it, citing concerns that Russia could use it for political leverage while also wanting Germany to purchase American natural gas instead. Additionally, Germany's preference for diplomatic relations with China and Russia contrasts with Washington's more confrontational stance. Many Germans feel that the US treats the EU as an afterthought. How this dynamic evolves in the coming years remains to be seen. Mexico. As America's next-door neighbor, Mexico has a long list of grievances, including trade disputes, border tensions, and controversial US immigration policies. The promise to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it did little to improve relations. Washington frequently pressures Mexico to curb illegal immigration and drug trafficking, but many Mexicans believe US policies unfairly place the blame on their country, while ignoring America's role in fueling the drug trade. Despite these tensions, Mexico remains one of the most popular destinations for Americans relocating abroad. The future of US-Mexico relations is uncertain, with potential shifts happening in the near future rather than years down the line. Arabia. There was a time when the US and Saudi Arabia were close allies, but that relationship has changed. The US has reduced its dependence on Saudi oil, diminishing the kingdom's leverage. Additionally, Washington's focus on human rights issues and the fallout from the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi have strained ties further. In response, Saudi Arabia has started building closer relationships with China and Russia, even accepting payments in Chinese yuan instead of US dollars. While the relationship isn't completely broken, its future remains uncertain. Denmark. Denmark's relationship with the US took a hit after Washington suggested buying Greenland in 2019, a move that many Danes found absurd. The situation resurfaced when Donald Trump, after leaving office, continued to express interest in acquiring Greenland. Additionally, Denmark's Nordic neighbors are growing skeptical of US influence, and Washington has been pressuring Denmark to increase military spending, something many Danes would rather allocate to social welfare programs. While Denmark isn't entirely anti-American, these recent events have left a sour taste, though tensions may fade over time. India. India maintains a working relationship with the US, but there are underlying concerns. Washington's lectures on democracy, trade restrictions, and historical ties with Pakistan haven't sat well with New Delhi. Despite US sanctions on Russia, India has continued strengthening its partnership with Moscow. Many in India also worry about Washington's unpredictability, pointing to how the US withdrew from Afghanistan as an example of unreliable commitments. While India and the US continue to collaborate, there is growing skepticism about America's long-term reliability as an ally. France is often portrayed as the intellectual friend who questions America's decisions. Tensions spiked when the US struck a defense pact with Australia and the UK, leading Australia to cancel a major submarine contract with France. French President Emmanuel Macron called it a betrayal, further straining relations. Washington's repeated pressure on European nations to increase defense spending has also caused frustration in Paris. While the US-France relationship is unlikely to collapse, tensions remain, and France continues to assert its independence on global issues. Panama. Panama's relationship with the US has evolved significantly since Washington handed over control of the Panama Canal in 1999. Today, China has become a major economic player in Panama, reducing the country's dependence on the US. Many Panamanians still remember the 1989 U.S. invasion to remove dictator Manuel Noriega, which some saw as an example of American imperialism. With Panama now part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, concerns have emerged that Beijing could gain too much influence in the region. There has even been speculation about whether the U.S. might attempt to reclaim control of the canal. Russia. Relations between the U.S. and Russia have deteriorated significantly, with economic sanctions, NATO expansion, and military conflicts. Most notably in Ukraine, Moscow views Washington as its primary adversary. The U.S. continues to support Ukraine with weapons and financial aid, much to Russia's frustration. Meanwhile, Russia is actively working with China, Iran, and North Korea to undermine U.S. influence wherever possible. Tensions between these two nations are unlikely to ease anytime soon. Canada. Despite their long-standing friendship, U.S.-Canada relations have been strained in recent years. Trade disputes such as tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum created friction. The cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline further angered Canada's energy sector, resulting in billions of dollars in lost investments. Canadians increasingly view the U.S. as self-centered and unreliable. While the two nations will likely resolve their differences, recent tensions, including Canadians booing the U.S. national anthem at NHL games, reflect growing frustrations. China. Topping the list is China, which is actively competing with the U.S. for global dominance. Trade wars, military tensions in the South China Sea, and disputes over Taiwan have intensified this rivalry. Both nations are engaging in significant military buildups in the Pacific, increasing the risk of conflict. While the U.S. and China have maintained trade relations, their ideological differences and competing geopolitical ambitions make them long-term adversaries. Final thoughts. These tensions highlight the complex and often strained relationships the U.S. has with various nations. While some conflicts may ease over time, others have the potential to escalate into major geopolitical crises. Only time will tell how these dynamics unfold.